Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Pepper, and today I'll be giving you my first impressions of Keystone, North America. And this is from Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, as well as designers Jeffrey Joyce and Isaac Vega. Not sure if we have anything from either of those three, so this might be the first for all three of those, so let's see how well of a first impression they made. I got this game for Christmas. I didn't know much about it at the time, but since then I've looked it up, and especially what caught my interest was Mike DeLisio put this on his top solo games of the year. And if you've watched any of the channel, you might have heard that I am the biggest solo gamer of the group, and I'm always on the lookout for another great one, and I just heard a lot of really good things about the solo play in this game, so I was very excited, as well as just another game with that beautiful nature theme and that artwork. I have liked the theme of pretty much every one of those types of games. The game, maybe not every game, nature theme game works for me, but the theme always is something that interests me. So we'll get a little bit into gameplay for this one, and in this, each player, I've only played solo so far, so I can't really speak totally on how the multiplayer mode plays, but each player gets this 4x4 grid board, and throughout the game you will be adding different animal cards, or else I think there's plants and trees and stuff in there as well, and these different things, well, each one, they're not all unique, there are repeat cards, I believe. But they have beautiful artwork. I think there's a few different artists, you can kind of see on the bottom there, that provided artwork for these cards. But they all mesh together really well, really beautiful artwork. So just first off, I'll say first impressions review of the components. I think they are very, very nice. Everything's solid. The cardboard in here is pretty good, pretty thick. I mean, regular cardboard. The iconography is very clear, and obviously the artwork is fantastic. But as you get those cards on your board, one of the base ways to score in every game is these terrain types. You want to create, for each of your rows and each of your columns, you're going to score at the end of the game for sets of cards, runs of cards. So runs of consecutive numbered cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, you can be ascending, descending, whatever you want. And of that run of cards, you need to have at least one shared habitat or terrain type throughout them. And in this case, all of these four have that orange terrain type there. And if they were placed in order, ascending order 1, 2, 3, 4, each of them has that orange. That would be a run of 4 that I would score at the end of the game. So if I had this, that would be 4 points. Plus you can add some of these research tokens through special actions throughout the game, and those will add an additional point per one that you have on those cards. And then so it might make it worth 5 or 6 points for that run. But another big thing here, probably the biggest thing of the scoring, is if any of the cards have this little Keystone species icon, then you score that run an additional time. So in this case, I only have one of those icons throughout these. So if I maybe had 2 of these tokens, research tokens, placed onto them, that would be a run of 4 plus 2 points, so that would be equal to 6, and I would score that 2 times, one originally and an additional time for this Keystone icon, so that would actually get me 12 points. So that's kind of the base scoring of the game, and you score that way for each of your rows and each of your columns. That's one of the interesting things in the game, because just everything is intersecting. You want to create, because you can't have a break. It has to be consecutive numbers. It cannot just be ascending numbers or descending numbers. It has to be consecutive. So that makes it really hard. You can fill in half your board, and it all works. It works together really nicely. And then you start filling in the later half of your board, and you run into some problems like, oh wait, I can't really place this here and make this run down on the bottom here, because that would mess up what I've already built somewhere else, or I'd have to change something that's already there in order to make this one work. So you do have to make sacrifices. I realized that partway through my first game. I played it twice. I realized that I cannot have a perfect board. I mean, maybe you could have a perfect board, but I was certainly not smart enough to figure out how to have a perfect board and how to have a perfect set on every single row and column. There are actually these ones as well, which can be wild, which you're kind of gaining points throughout the game, or not really points, a currency, which, well, one thing about these is they have 1 value and 3 value on the back side. I don't know if I like that they have that, because you can get quite a few of these throughout the game, and I don't always like making change. It's not always convenient, so I might want them all on the one side, but maybe I bump them if there's a pile of them and it tips over to a 3 side. So I decided to just count all of these as 1 value throughout the game, since I was playing solo and I didn't have to divide them amongst other players. But that is something to be careful of. Just, you might flip those over possibly. So that's just one thing. But yeah, you can spend those throughout the game. You're gaining them in various different ways that I'll explain some later, but you can get these cards in your tableau, which those are just 1 type. You have 1, I think there's 2 for each type of terrain, each of the 4 types, and those count as a wild number, and so you can count that as maybe a 3 in 1 row, but then count it maybe as a 1 in that column. So that, I have not used these very much. I didn't even use them at all in my second game, but I think these are really powerful. I just was not really advanced enough to really think ahead and put these into the best strategic places, but that could really open things up and allow for higher scoring and just a lot more control, just be able to make your board work. So yeah, I really enjoy that core kind of mechanism. It makes me think of, I guess it's not really like Sagrada, but it made me think of Sagrada as you're just filling in your board as you go, trying to meet certain requirements. You also have goals that you can have of certain things you want to find throughout your board, and depending on how many of these 4 things that you complete, you will score a certain amount of points. I like that they're all pretty similar, but I do like that you can have those goals as well. So yeah, it did kind of make me think of Sagrada, just trying to get your board to work and fill out certain scoring requirements, as well as just certain placement things. So yeah, one of the ways that you can gain those kind of acorn tokens to use to buy those wild cards is these cards, these tiles. These are special actions that you can use. You'll have a few of them out in the game. I'm not sure exactly how many there are in the base game, but the solo mode tells you specific ones to put out. And these are the face-up side. They have the back side as well. And you can choose to use one of the face-up ones, or activate all of the ones that are face down. So if it was like this, then you would only have the choice to activate all of them that are face down. You would gain all those benefits, flip them back over, and that's also one of the things that advances the game. So there's a certain amount of rounds in the game, and each time that you refresh these and use all the face down ones, it advances 1 space towards the end game, and that's how that end game is triggered, that or someone filling their board entirely. In the solo mode, I had more control of that, so I could kind of manipulate these and spam these near the end to get a bunch of points and a bunch of actions, while also trying to trigger it for the final time about when I had my board filled. Another thing I would like to mention is the rulebook. I usually say in my unboxings that there's a lot of examples, or maybe not many examples, or how long it is, and hopefully it's a good rulebook, which I usually forget to talk about whether or not it was a good rulebook, but I'm remembering this time, and I will say this is a good rulebook. I really enjoyed it. It was very clearly laid out. I guess I can't really show you all the pages, but very clearly laid out. There were a lot of examples, very full, complete examples too, of an entire turn. And then especially for the scoring, it had full examples of what those runs of cards are and how all these different examples would score. And they even had a full end of game scoring with a special objective card. So I always love that. I love to kind of go through it, apply what I've learned and try to figure out what this is going to score, and then check if I got it right, and I did get it right, and that was so satisfying that I knew that I had this game understood, and I wasn't going to be having any problems scoring my game or playing it correctly. So I always love when they go the extra mile, put just complete, full examples of turns and endgame scoring in their rulebooks. More should do it. It's a really good rulebook. And the other the pretty much last thing here, the other book in the game is this field journal, which is pretty much a solo mode or solo campaign. It has 20 different scenarios. I have played 2. And yeah, you're a junior biologist and going on your first adventures. I don't know, maybe it covers a whole year or something like that. But yeah, so each mission, I guess I'll show you maybe the first 2 missions here. Each mission has a bunch of text, a little story about different characters you meet and different things that they teach you. Kind of little flavor text story behind what objectives you'll have. This game, first assignment is very easy. You just have the objective to score 50 or more points by the end of the game. There are no special rules, but sometimes they do add special rules, and it kind of tells you which of those special tokens to use, those special action tokens, as well as a few different things for setup. I love that even the ones that are basic setup, like basic base game setup, that they do not change, like put 6 cards into the market, into the field. That's 6 cards in the base game too, so they didn't change it up, but they still decided to put it in there just so you would have that information. I like that they do that. Some games just only mark the changes. I like it when they kind of just do all the information anyway. And kind of the second scenario here, you see more awesome. I love all the little details and notes added in here, these drawings, special drawings. Haven't looked forward to all the others, but so far it's just added a lot of flavor and character to the book. Again, more story about kind of what your mission is that time. Setup, choosing. I think the only difference here was kind of the secret objective cards and those special action tokens, and then the special rule change. This one was when you kind of drafted one of those cards with that kind of that'll let you score your set again, those multiplayer Keystone icons. When you've got one of those into your field, you had to discard another one of those if they were available from the market. But yeah, and then the assignment here, so end game, what you need to win was 70 points for the second game, and you had to complete at least one of your secret objectives from those scoring cards. So one of these, I'd have to complete at least one of those. And then end the game with 6 or more of those kind of key icons. So you'll be discarding a lot more of them throughout the game, but that is one of the things you have to do, and I kind of got stuck with that with only 2 spots left, and I needed 2 of them. I had kind of overlooked that objective, thinking that would be easy, but so then I was stuck trying to make it work at the end. But yeah, it feels really different from game to game, I think, just with those, not only the different objectives, but the different actions that you can take with those tokens, different special actions. And the first game I was spamming trying to get a lot of those acorn tokens. I had one that gave me 8 of them, so I just kept getting a ton of them. I didn't really spend them that much, so I had a bunch left over. They'd go to like 3 to 1 for victory points at the end of the game, so I just had a ton of points in those at the end of the game. But maybe if I'd used them for wild cards a little more, I could have maybe scored better elsewhere. But yeah, also the cards, the way you draft them is just a line of 6 cards, and the rightmost you can take for free. Otherwise, you have to put one of these on each of the cards that you pass up as you move down the line to get those cards, which that's in a lot of different games, but I don't know if I mentioned that that's how you get the cards in the game. So that's another use for these. But yeah, first game I was just getting a lot of those. Second game I was moving around cards within my habitat a ton, and when you place the cards, I think I forgot to mention this as well, when you place the cards, everything they're adjacent to, if they match any of these symbols, so if I was like this and I placed that one in the middle, he would match an orange over here and a green over with this raccoon, so that would be 2 of those little acorn symbols. So another way that I was able to get those tokens, and another way that I was able to manipulate my board that I wasn't really able to as much in the first game. So yeah, and as you go along, you'll be able to unlock these, open up these secret things, which I assume feature more cards and more animals. Really looking forward to trying those. I think you can, it says you can just open these right up, but if you want to unlock them as you go, then you can play that way. But I think that's pretty much everything here. So yeah, final thoughts. I really enjoyed this game. I will say it is very simple, like just concept of you get a card, you place it in there, you try to get sets, consecutive numbered cards, and you have to have a common symbol between them, and you try to do that for each of your rows, each of your columns. It's pretty easy to understand, but it gets very, very thinky, because everything is connected. What's good here, you have to think of what you want for your row on the top row, second row, third row, fourth row, but then you realize, oh wait, but I'm gonna have to make runs in my columns as well, and it very quickly, especially in the second half of the game, it gets so complicated as you're thinking, do I pivot and maybe not get a set of 4 here, but get a set of 3, which will allow me to get a set of 3 over here in this column, so maybe not as good in the top row, but in that column I will be scoring more points, and is that difference actually going to be worth it? So it's a lot of give and take. You're not going to be able to get a perfect board, I don't think, which I love to just get a complete perfect board. Something with Sagrada, which I compared this to, is I feel like I can score the best that I can possibly score in Sagrada. This one, you can't do that. You have to make sacrifices. You're not going to have a perfect run in each row, in each column. But if you play it right, like I had a run of 2 cards, and that scored me 9 points, because I had a research token on it, and so that made it up into 3 points, and I had 2 of those Keystone icons, so that multiplied it, or I got to score it an additional 2 times. That ended up being 9 points, which was equal to some of my 4 card runs. So that was really cool. That I was able to do that in the late game when I thought I was just going to have to sacrifice that column to still score 9 points on it. It kind of opened my mind up to all the different possibilities that you can have in this game. So yeah, I think this one's just going to get better with time. Right now, I think it's probably sitting at an 8, and I think it is just because of that, because it is very thinky. I have very analysis paralysis, so it's good that I've played it solo and have not slowed down a 3-4 player game of this. But I think it would play really well at those player counts, especially kind of the timing of these, because I think these would be shared in a multiplayer game, and you'd be activating them once on your turn, or maybe you think you should activate all of them because maybe the next player is going to activate all of them. I think that would play really nicely in a multiplayer game, but as it is, I think it plays really nicely solo as well. Can't wait to play the rest of that solo campaign, unlock all these envelopes, see what they add, if they just add more animals, maybe more scoring things, I don't know. Looking forward to it. But yeah, so I really recommend this game if you are a solo gamer and you like that puzzly aspect of kind of filling out your board, scoring for each column, trying to get rows and get all these things to intersect and work together perfectly, or as good as they possibly can. If that is interesting to you, very crunchy, I think this is a good one. I highly recommend it. But yeah, that's everything. Check out the unboxing for this if you want to, if you want a closer look at the components, although I did show them pretty closely here. Go check that out. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and don't forget to keep on nibbling on that content.